Welcome to BookBuzz Reviews and Summaries. Imagine waking up in a foreign country, not knowing a single word of the language, and yet within a few months, you're conversing fluently, navigating the streets, and connecting with locals like a true native. Sound impossible? Benny Lewis, in his revolutionary book Fluent in 3 months, How Anyone at Any Age Can Learn to Speak Any Language from Anywhere in the World, not only makes it possible, he shows you how. What if you could break the boundaries of language, instantly unlocking the world? Picture this. You're at a cafe in Paris, ordering your favorite croissant in perfect French, or perhaps strolling through the markets of Tokyo, conversing with the vendors in Japanese as if you've lived there for years. Benny Lewis isn't just some polyglot with a talent for learning languages. He's a man who's turned language learning into an art form, a science, and a way of life. And in Fluent in 3 months, he pulls back the curtain on the exact techniques that have allowed him to master more than a dozen languages in a matter of months, all while traveling the world and fully embracing the cultures he immerses himself in. You might think, I'm too old to start learning a new language. But Benny has debunked that myth. He's worked with people of all ages, teenagers to seniors, and helped them speak fluently in languages they never thought possible. The truth is, learning a language isn't about memorizing lists of vocabulary or spending hours in a classroom. It's about immersing yourself, practicing with real people, and embracing the discomfort of making mistakes, because it's through those mistakes that true learning happens. And Benny's approach is all about taking those first steps without fear. What if, rather than memorizing grammar rules and spending years to speak conversationally, you could pick up the skills to communicate and understand a language almost effortlessly? Imagine the freedom of thinking in another language, of understanding the nuances and emotions that words convey. Benny's method isn't just about fluency. It's about confidence, speed, and a deeper connection with the world around you. He teaches you to learn in the most effective way possible, eliminating all the traditional barriers and fears that keep us from starting. No matter your age, no matter your background, this book is a call to action, a challenge to push past your limits and become truly fluent in the languages of your dreams. In this groundbreaking book, Benny doesn't just show you how to learn a language in a few months. He reveals the mindset shift required to take the leap. The journey of language learning is not a solo mission, but one full of excitement, cultural exchange, and global connection. And it all starts with a single word. Are you ready to take the first step? Part 1. The Foundation of Language Learning, a New Approach to Fluency. In the opening of Fluent in 3 months, Benny Lewis sets the stage by completely redefining the concept of language learning. Gone are the days of daunting textbooks, stiff grammar rules, and impossible-to-remember vocabulary. Instead, Lewis presents a bold and energizing approach that puts the emphasis on real-world communication, immersion, and practical experience. Through this lens, fluency isn't a distant goal but an achievable reality for anyone, regardless of age, background, or prior knowledge of a language. Lewis's message is simple but revolutionary. You can learn any language in just 3 months if you approach it the right way. And he's here to show you exactly how. Chapter 1. The Myth of Perfect Fluency. Benny begins by addressing one of the most common misconceptions about language learning, the need to speak perfectly before you can communicate. He tells the story of how, as a young man, he struggled with the idea of perfection in his own language journey. Having always been an enthusiastic traveler, Lewis initially found himself paralyzed by the pressure to speak without mistakes. However, after a trip to Spain where he was forced to speak Spanish with locals, despite not feeling fluent, something clicked. He realized that communication isn't about perfection, it's about connection. Lewis challenges readers to discard the idea of perfect fluency and replace it with a goal of progressive fluency, aiming to continually improve, but not waiting for the moment when you're perfect to start speaking. His mantra is that the best way to learn is to speak early, make mistakes, and learn from them. The key lesson: fluency is not about knowing every word or perfecting grammar. It's about making real connections with people. So, stop waiting for the perfect time to speak. Start now and let communication be your guide. Chapter 2: The Power of Talking to Strangers. In the second chapter, Lewis dives deep into the idea of language immersion. He urges learners to stop isolating themselves with books, apps, and traditional study methods. Instead, he advocates for a radical approach: talk to strangers. Lewis shares a powerful anecdote about his first experience in a foreign country where he had little to no knowledge of the local language. But rather than feeling defeated, he began chatting with locals in any way he could, learning through the process of conversation. He quickly discovered that speaking with strangers was one of the best ways to practice, learn, and even fail safely. Strangers, after all, aren't going to judge you for making mistakes. They're likely to be impressed by your efforts. The mistake is in not trying at all. He introduces the concept of language immersion, the practice of surrounding yourself with the target language in a way that makes it unavoidable. Whether through talking to people, watching TV shows in that language, or labeling objects around the house, immersion isn't just about moving to another country. It's about actively engaging with the language on a daily basis. The key lesson: don't wait for fluency to speak. The more you speak to strangers, the quicker you'll learn. Language learning is about doing, not just studying. Chapter 3: The 3-Month Plan: Breaking Down the Roadblocks. Now that Lewis has introduced the importance of speaking from day one, he outlines his 3-month plan for learning any language. This is where the magic happens. He doesn't ask you to spend years conjugating verbs or memorizing vocabulary lists. Instead, he breaks the language learning journey down into 3 manageable months. Month 1: learn to communicate basic needs and build confidence. In the first month, the focus is on getting comfortable with the sounds of the language, picking up essential phrases, and establishing a routine that involves speaking with locals. It's about gaining the courage to ask for help, order food, and express yourself, even if you make mistakes. Lewis emphasizes that speaking is the foundation of the process. This is where you build your confidence, and each conversation, no matter how imperfect, is a stepping stone to fluency. He also recommends using language learning apps, but only as a supplementary tool, not as a primary source of learning. Month 2: intensify the immersion. By the second month, you should feel more comfortable in the language, and now it's time to push yourself further. In this phase, Lewis recommends diving into more complex conversations, picking up local slang, and challenging yourself to speak in various situations. He encourages learners to do things like speak only in the target language, even in familiar environments, and practice the language for a minimum of 30 minutes a day. The more time you spend with the language, the quicker you'll see improvement. Month 3: perfect your communication. By the 3rd month, Lewis says you should aim to speak without fear or hesitation. At this point, you should be well on your way to fluency, and it's time to refine your ability to hold deeper, more nuanced conversations. Lewis suggests practicing different types of speaking: casual chats, formal discussions, debates, and storytelling. By this stage, you'll be ready to speak without thinking too much about the grammar or vocabulary. The language will feel like second nature. The key lesson: don't expect perfection from day one. Fluency takes time, but with a structured, focused approach, anyone can achieve basic conversational fluency in 3 months. Consistency and immersion are your best friends. Chapter 4: The Real-World Approach: Learning from Real-Life Experiences. The next chapter focuses on one of the most valuable pieces of advice in the book: learn by doing. Lewis shares stories from his own travels, where he would throw himself into situations where language was the only way to survive. For instance, he recounts his experience in Brazil, where he didn't speak Portuguese but immediately began engaging with locals. Through trial and error, he learned how to navigate situations, whether it was finding his way around the city, bargaining at markets, or simply making new friends. This hands-on approach teaches the language in context, using real-life scenarios to reinforce learning. Learning to communicate isn't about memorizing words, it's about using them in context. Whether you're asking for directions, explaining your hobbies, or chatting about the weather, language is meant to be used in authentic exchanges. Lewis stresses that it's crucial to embrace the uncertainty that comes with speaking a new language. Mistakes will happen, and that's perfectly fine. It's through failure that we learn the most. The key is to get out of your comfort zone and engage. Talk to people, ask questions, and experiment with the language. The key lesson: real-life practice trumps classroom learning. Language isn't just about memorization. It's about using words to navigate real-world situations. So go out, make mistakes, and learn through experience. Chapter 5: How to Find Motivation, Building Your Own Language Community. In this chapter, Lewis tackles the ever-present issue of motivation. It's one thing to start learning a language. It's another to keep going when it gets tough. Language learning is a marathon, not a sprint, and it's easy to get discouraged when progress feels slow. So, how do you stay motivated? Lewis suggests finding or creating a language community. He talks about how having people around you, whether in person or online, who support your language learning journey can make all the difference. Whether it's language exchange partners, online forums, or local meetups, surrounding yourself with like-minded individuals helps maintain accountability and keeps the fire of motivation burning. Lewis also recommends focusing on rewards and celebrations along the way. Celebrate small victories, whether it's having your first full conversation in the language or understanding a song in that language. These wins will fuel your continued progress. The key lesson: motivation comes from the community and the small victories you celebrate along the way. Surround yourself with positive influences and keep pushing forward, even when progress feels slow. Chapter 6: The Importance of Consistency, Making Language a Daily Habit. Finally, Lewis closes this section with an emphasis on consistency. He explains that learning a language is a lifelong journey, but to get to conversational fluency quickly, you need to practice every day. Whether it's 15 minutes or an hour, dedicating time each day is key. He even suggests setting up mini goals, like learning 10 new words a day or practicing a particular topic, and measuring your progress. The key lesson: consistency is crucial. Make language practice a daily habit, and you'll see continuous improvement over time. In this first part of Fluent in 3 months, Benny Lewis shifts the narrative of language learning from overwhelming to achievable. He opens the door for anyone at any age from anywhere in the world to learn a language with his practical, actionable, and optimistic approach. By focusing on speaking early, immersing yourself in the language, and breaking free of the perfectionist mindset, you can transform your language learning journey and unlock the joy of communicating across cultures. Part 2: Mastering the Journey, From Beginner to Fluent Speaker. In the second part of Fluent in 3 months, Benny Lewis dives deeper into the practical aspects of language learning, breaking down more specific methods and techniques for how to accelerate your progress. This section is all about optimizing your approach, addressing the challenges you might face, and giving you the tools to reach fluency in an efficient and enjoyable way. By the end of this part, you'll have an even clearer roadmap for achieving fluency in just 3 months, and you'll feel confident enough to start speaking with anyone, anywhere, anytime. Chapter 7: The Importance of Pronunciation. Don't be afraid to speak. Lewis opens Part 2 by addressing a crucial aspect of language learning that often causes hesitation: pronunciation. Many learners shy away from speaking because they're afraid their accent will be too noticeable or their pronunciation too incorrect. Lewis, however, insists that pronunciation should never hold you back from speaking and communicating. He stresses that the goal isn't to sound like a native speaker, but to be understood by others. To get there, Lewis advocates for focusing on learning the sounds of the language early on. One of his main pieces of advice is to mimic the sounds of the language as closely as possible. He suggests using resources like YouTube videos, podcasts, and language apps to expose yourself to authentic accents and speech patterns. The more you hear, the easier it will be to replicate the sounds yourself. Lewis even goes so far as to say that you should aim to copy the way a native speaker speaks rather than worrying about how you sound in the process. Another technique Lewis recommends is shadowing, which involves repeating sentences or phrases as soon as you hear them, mirroring the speed, intonation, and rhythm of native speakers. This will help you become comfortable with the language's natural flow and pronunciation, without the pressure of perfecting every word. The key lesson: don't wait until your pronunciation is perfect to speak. Start speaking and practicing your pronunciation right from the beginning. Perfection is not the goal, communication is. Chapter 8: The Power of Learning Vocabulary in Context. In this chapter, Benny Lewis takes a deeper look at vocabulary acquisition and how it should be approached for maximum retention and efficiency. While traditional methods often encourage learners to memorize vocabulary lists, Lewis argues that context is key to remembering and using words effectively. He explains that, instead of learning isolated words, learners should focus on phrases and sentences that have immediate relevance to real-life situations. For example, instead of memorizing random words like apple, dog, or house, Lewis suggests learning phrases like, "I'd like an apple, please," or "I have a dog," that can be immediately used in conversation. Not only does this make the vocabulary more practical, but it also allows you to start speaking sooner, using full sentences and expressing complete thoughts. Lewis introduces his method of spaced repetition, a proven technique for retaining vocabulary over time. He recommends using apps like Anki to help you systematically review new words and phrases at increasing intervals, reinforcing them until they're embedded in your long-term memory. Additionally, Lewis encourages learners to practice active recall by using new words in conversations as soon as possible. This practical usage reinforces the vocabulary and helps you become more comfortable with it. The key lesson: learning vocabulary in context, not in isolation, will make it more useful and easier to remember. Focus on phrases and use spaced repetition to reinforce and retain your new vocabulary. Chapter 9: How to Structure Your Learning for Maximum Efficiency. Now that we've covered speaking and vocabulary acquisition, Lewis shifts to the more strategic aspects of language learning, specifically how to structure your learning time for maximum efficiency. He introduces a system that focuses on being consistent, but also intentional and targeted in your approach. The first step in Lewis's strategy is to set clear, measurable goals. Whether it's learning 100 new words in a week, speaking for 30 minutes every day, or mastering a specific grammar point, having clear objectives keeps you motivated and helps you track your progress. He emphasizes the importance of making your goals specific, e.g., learn 10 food-related phrases rather than learn 10 new words, and achievable, e.g., have a 5-minute conversation in my target language by the end of the week. Next, Lewis stresses the importance of time management. He suggests committing to language practice every day, even if it's just for a short period. The key is consistency. Daily practice ensures that language learning becomes a natural habit. However, he also cautions against burning out. It's not about how much time you spend studying, but how well you use that time. He recommends using the Pomodoro technique, where you focus on language practice for 25 minutes, followed by a short break. This allows you to work efficiently without exhausting yourself. Lastly, Lewis advocates for deliberate practice, which is an approach that focuses on specific skills you need to improve. If speaking is difficult, focus more on conversations. If grammar is challenging, dedicate extra time to grammar exercises. He also suggests using resources that are specifically designed to help learners at your level, such as beginner podcasts or videos. The key lesson: set clear goals, create a consistent daily practice routine, and focus on deliberate practice to keep your learning efficient and structured. Chapter 10: Getting Over the Fear Factor. How to Break Through the Mental Blocks. In this chapter, Lewis tackles one of the most common and often debilitating obstacles in language learning: fear. Whether it's fear of making mistakes, fear of sounding foolish, or fear of not being understood, fear can easily hold you back from speaking and practicing a language. Lewis recognizes that this fear is real, but he emphasizes that it's also completely unnecessary. He shares stories from his own journey, detailing how he initially struggled with fear, especially when he was speaking languages in countries where he didn't know anyone. But over time, he learned that the only way to get over the fear was to confront it head-on. The more mistakes he made, the more he improved. In fact, he argues that mistakes are a crucial part of the learning process. They're how we learn what works and what doesn't. To overcome fear, Lewis recommends starting with low-stakes conversations. This could be as simple as ordering food at a restaurant or asking for directions. The more you expose yourself to real-world interactions, the more comfortable and confident you'll become. Lewis also advises learners to reframe their mindset about mistakes. Rather than seeing them as failures, view them as learning opportunities. Lewis also talks about the psychological aspect of language learning. You need to believe in your ability to learn. He encourages learners to adopt a growth mindset, which involves the belief that intelligence and language ability can be developed through effort and persistence, rather than being fixed traits. A growth mindset allows you to embrace challenges and view them as opportunities to grow, rather than barriers to success. The key lesson: fear will always be a part of the learning process, but it doesn't have to hold you back. Embrace mistakes, practice low-stakes conversations, and adopt a growth mindset to overcome your language learning fears. Chapter 11: Staying Motivated Strategies to Keep Going. In this chapter, Lewis offers more motivation-boosting tips to help you stay committed to your language learning journey. Motivation is essential, but it can be fickle. It can fade quickly, especially when you're faced with challenges or plateau periods. One of his most effective strategies is to celebrate your successes along the way, no matter how small they may seem. By acknowledging and celebrating milestones, whether it's holding your first full conversation in the target language or watching a TV show without subtitles, you reinforce the positive feelings around language learning and stay motivated. Another tip is to find a language partner who can help keep you accountable. This could be a friend, a tutor, or even someone online who is learning the same language. Regular practice with a partner pushes you to stay consistent, and it's a great way to challenge each other in a supportive way. Lewis also suggests that you focus on using your language in real-world contexts. Whether it's traveling, engaging with social media in your target language, or attending language meetups, immersing yourself in real-world situations where you can practice will help maintain motivation and accelerate your learning. The key lesson: celebrate your progress, find a supportive language partner, and immerse yourself in real-world situations to stay motivated and committed. Transforming language learning into a lifelong journey. In this second part of Fluent in 3 months, Benny Lewis has equipped you with the tools and mindset to take your language learning journey to the next level. He's taught you how to efficiently structure your time, overcome your fears, improve your pronunciation, and stay motivated throughout the process. But perhaps the most important lesson in this part of the book is that language learning is not a sprint, it's a lifestyle. By adopting Benny's approach, you'll find yourself not only fluent in 3 months, but also equipped with the skills and mindset to continue learning and exploring languages for the rest of your life. Language learning becomes a fun, rewarding, and ongoing adventure, a path to understanding different cultures, making new connections, and transforming your own life. Ready to take your next steps? Fluent in 3 months is not just a method. It's an invitation to embrace the world of languages with confidence, excitement, and the knowledge that fluency is within your reach. Part 3: Embracing Fluency, Speaking, Socializing, and Staying Committed. In the final part of Fluent in 3 months, Benny Lewis takes everything from the first 2 parts and drives the principles home, showing you how to embrace your newfound fluency, make speaking a regular part of your life, and continue learning long after you've hit the 3-month milestone. Part 3 is all about taking action, engaging with the world, and making language learning a sustainable part of your everyday routine. By now, you should be equipped with a strong foundation, but the journey isn't over. It's just beginning. Chapter 12: The Power of Speaking Early, Becoming Comfortable with Conversation. Benny opens this chapter by reiterating one of his key principles: don't wait to speak. Many language learners spend weeks or even months trying to perfect grammar, pronunciation, or vocabulary before they attempt their first conversation. Lewis argues that this delay can be a major hindrance and holds learners back from making real progress. Speaking early and often is crucial to developing fluency, and the earlier you start, the quicker you'll see results. Lewis suggests that you start having conversations from day one, even if it's just for a few minutes. This could be a simple greeting, introducing yourself, or asking basic questions. As you practice speaking in real-world situations, you'll get more comfortable and learn to adapt your knowledge to actual conversations rather than theoretical lessons. He also emphasizes the importance of finding language partners to practice with, whether it's through a language exchange, a tutor, or even a community of learners online. But it's not just about practice, it's about getting comfortable with the messiness of learning. Mistakes will be made, and it's essential to embrace that. Lewis encourages learners to see each conversation as a learning opportunity where you can experiment, adapt, and grow. By doing so, you'll naturally build the confidence to speak more fluently. The key lesson: don't wait for perfection. Speak early, speak often, and embrace the messiness of language learning. Every conversation is an opportunity to improve. Chapter 13: The Real Reward of Fluency: Connecting with the World. The final chapter of the book emphasizes one last powerful message. The real reward of fluency is the ability to connect with people and cultures around the world. Once you've achieved fluency in a language, you're not just speaking words, you're unlocking access to new experiences, friendships, and opportunities. Language isn't just a tool for communication, it's a bridge to deeper connections with others. Lewis shares personal stories of how his language skills have allowed him to travel the world, meet new people, and experience cultures on a deeper level. Fluency opens doors to rich conversations, deeper friendships, and the ability to truly understand and appreciate the perspectives of others. He encourages readers to use their new language skills to broaden their horizons, whether it's through travel, work, or simply engaging with people online. Fluency allows you to be more than just a tourist. You can now experience the world through the eyes of a local, understanding the nuances, traditions, and values that make each culture unique. The key lesson: fluency is not just about speaking a language. It's about connecting with the world in a way that enriches your life and allows you to form meaningful relationships. Conclusion: your language learning journey continues. Benny concludes Fluent in 3 months with an inspiring message: fluency is just the beginning. The journey doesn't end after 3 months. It's a lifelong adventure of continuous learning, growth, and connection. By following the methods and mindset he has shared throughout the book, you are now equipped to not only achieve fluency in a new language, but to keep that language alive in your life for years to come. So, whether you're just beginning your journey or have already started speaking in your target language, remember that the possibilities are endless. Embrace the challenge, enjoy the process, and know that fluency is within your reach. All it takes is commitment, consistency, and a passion for learning. Your language adventure has just begun. Thanks for listening. Please like, subscribe, and click the bell icon to get new video updates. Happy learning!